Regeneration. We are now starting recording. It's 10 o'clock. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. And we have one from Councillor Steve Jones. I haven't had any others. No. Okay. The next item is the disclosure of personal and prejudicial interests. Members? No. Any officers? No. Okay. Item 3 is the prohibition of whip votes and declaration of party whips, which is the standard in the scrutiny. And then item 4 are the minutes of the previous meetings. Are they agreed as an accurate record? Can anyone yes online? Can you please mute because there's feedback coming? Okay, thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda is public questions, and we haven't had any. One? Oh, Wendy.
Chair, thank you. It's just to say I am having real problems this morning. Apart from not being able to get on very easily, I cannot get the agenda up now. For some reason, it was available yesterday, no problems today. I have no agenda in front of me. It just will not come up on my other screen. So I may be a bit more at sea than usual. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Wendy. Yeah, that's a good one. The chair, Rachel is now emailing it to you again so that you have another copy. Okay. Public questions. We haven't any. Item 6 is city centre retail. We did invite the leader and Councillor Robert Francis Davis, but at the moment, neither of them are here. So can I then ask Paul Ralph to go through the report? Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Okay, so what I've attempted to do in the report is to cover the current some of the key highlights around the issue of city centre retail, and not just Swansea, but putting it in the context of comparisons with other cities also. So you'll all be aware, of course, that we've had waves of issues over the past 2 or 3 years that have knocked us for six, from the COVID pandemic through now to the impact on global supply chains, which is also then compounded by the impact of the war in Ukraine and exacerbating issues, as you know. And that's all hit just as I guess we were starting to find our feet. And in some ways, these shocks have pushed the trajectory that perhaps city and town centres were already on even further, but also begun to look at ways that things can be improved. So in the positive sense, Swansea is overperforming in the recovery, and that was first signalled in August 2020 with the recovery of footfall that was well above other cities, and there is a tracker available online. I can send the link after the session by Centre for Cities, and when you compare Swansea to other city centres, Cardiff, Birmingham, London, Swansea does actually outperform a number of other city centres. The return of people to work, the increasing amount of footfall in the city centre, be that the student population and other factors, the nighttime economy as well, is above par. And you'll see from the table in the report that, okay, we're not back up to 2019 levels yet, but notwithstanding the sort of the slower return to work in the city centre, in all other respects, footfall is improving in substantial chunks each year. And obviously we're waiting now for November and December figures for 2022, but the increase is considerable. And a large part of that has to be down, I would say, to the continued regeneration effort that is going on, which you will feedback on afterwards as well. There's basically you'll be aware of the range of projects that have been going on throughout this period. Significant buildings like the Albert Hall and the Palace Theatre, the Arena, private sector developments, which is really good to see, and a further impact of the regeneration programme. So HASA with the biophilic development that's going on, the repurposing the British Home Stores building. And if you look at the Wine Street scheme, it's really pleasing. I've seen myself over the summer, the cafe culture that we'd always aspired for is really beginning to take shape there. You see families with pushchairs at 7 o'clock in the evening, which would have been unheard of maybe a decade ago. So all the the footfall across the Sail Bridge to SA1, the city is coming alive, and the data does bear that out, as I say. So the key landmarks around the city are really taking shape now, and the market as well. We can't ignore the impact of the market is really positive and has been throughout this period, and all these things are major catalysts that help to stimulate footfall. It's probably fair to say as well, we are trying to pull every lever we can. So where funding is available, we ensure that we have access to those options, which includes the list I provided there, things like the town centre loan, placemaking grants, transforming town strategic grants, etc., right down to training for businesses to adapt to being able to repair green infrastructure, for example, through the Community Renewal Fund. So, and the Meanwhile Uses programme. So it's balancing that, I guess, with, there are, of course, issues that we need to tackle going forward, and some things to think about in paragraph 2.17. And, we can't control how the private sector occupies spaces, but I guess we do need to think about the balance of, it shouldn't necessarily be perhaps a wholesale drive to convert everything into residential, because then you don't have enough commercial left. These sorts of points, and the ability of smaller players to be a part of this, which the package of measures I've just outlined does enable. The key really is enabling a vibrant mix of uses in the city centre, and I think the report does outline that there's a good balance already coming through the regeneration programme that's going on there, that mix is beginning to show really positive data on all the key footfall trends, which is positive. There's obviously more that needs to be done. The climate emergency can't be ignored, but again, Swansea is leading the way with piloting green infrastructure schemes using Welsh Government pilot funding. So schemes like the Dragon Hotel that are forthcoming. You've already seen 85 Kingsway, the Potter's Wheel, and various other schemes that are taking shape. So all of this is happening. It all happens as well in partnership. So we work very closely with Russell and his team, and it's a concerted effort really to try and make sure that the environment and conditions are there to enable people to live, work and play successfully in the city centre. And as I said, the Centre for Cities data does bear that out. I'll stop there, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. The first question is from Councillor Peter Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul, for that report. Just a couple of questions on paragraph 2.3. How do you actually measure the footfall? I mean, do you have someone with a little clicker as people going past, or is there a more sophisticated way? And yeah, go on, I'll do that first.
There are electronic counting devices that monitor that footfall. So it is a little more. It's not just a clicker or a clipboard. And there are options to expand that in future through the Smart Towns initiative with more deeper data. We're looking at that as well.
Is there a way of avoiding double counting people? I wander in circles around the town centre, but yeah. You can avoid that.
Some of the devices, I'll have to double check with the data Lisa supplied me with,
right.
But they use mobile phone signals, and they can tell discreetly different mobile phone signals. It doesn't record any phone numbers, but it knows that there are different mobiles in the vicinity.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously this measures the number of people in the city centre at any one time. Is there any way of actually measuring the monetary value of that? I know we can do that with tourism. Can you do it with retail as well? Is that?
I think you can. And there is some analysis on the Centre for Cities website, but I'll look into that for you by all means.
Yeah, because
just ask the question. Just to add to that, Vodafone, not Vodafone, some of the credit card data, whilst it's, as Paul said, with phones, it's anonymised, but you can buy the credit card data from the organisations, which looks at spend and in different localities and different areas of the centres as well, which can then be obviously analysed and brought to bear in terms of thinking.
Would that be value for money for us to do that, or is that just a?
No, I think it would be, to be honest. Yeah, we are looking at that at the moment as part of a new city centre strategy for Swansea. So buying that data, getting the evidence base is fundamental, basically, and that's not only sort of spend and footfall, but talking to the retailers and talking to all sort of the important, or looking at the important aspects of what makes up a city centre, doing the analysis, and then sort of moving on from there into what are the key interventions we need to look at.
Yeah, it just strikes me. Cardiff obviously has quite a high footfall, but I think the retailer's perception is that there's a higher spend there as well, and maybe we can counter that data with our own figures, which would be quite useful. But it's do, when you're in the city centre, you do get the impression it's quite empty by comparison to previously. I mean, I was there just before I came in. Now, I mean, very early, it was very, very quiet there as well. So, that does give that impression. The other question I had was on 2.17, the 5 bullet points which Paul has laid out there. I assume those are all action for Welsh Government, and are we actually lobbying Welsh Government to try to do some of this stuff?
I think that those are things that come out from myself, from the funding perspective. They come through as we're working with applicants for grant funding, so we do feed all this information back to Welsh Government, and also it's been included in response to Senate inquiries, etc., as well, to make those points. But they are things that need to be taken account of at Welsh Government level, I think. Yeah.
It just seems a number of these things would be quite useful, particularly being able to distinguish between different types of retail offer and the charges on development grants does seem to me to be quite fundamental to try to get that boost going in the city centre. So
yeah. We have regular meetings with Welsh Government and the Regeneration team, etc. So all those issues are discussed on a regular basis, and we are looking for ways at how we work with Welsh Government to take the future phases of regeneration forward. Yeah, definitely.
I noticed the leaders come online. Councillor Stewart, is there anything you'd like to say in the beginning?
Sorry, Chair. Apologies for being late. My other meeting overran. Just to say, I think the report which the officer prepared is really good, and it does highlight that whilst Swansea, like all city centres, are facing the headwinds that we're seeing economically at the moment, the interventions and investments that we're making are having a difference, and we are performing relatively better than our competitors in comparison. I think that the points that Paul has made in the report as well around the fact that we are still facing the twin threats of out of town and internet shopping, which are obviously cheaper ways of doing commerce, are things that we continue to be mindful of. And that we are, as was just said, lobbying Welsh Government on a number of fronts in terms of how we can continue to support local businesses and businesses in the city centre to continue to grow. I think the next few years will be as challenging, if not more so, for the UK, given the financial climate. But we've got the benefit of £1 billion worth of investment being rolled out, a number of large live schemes in delivery. And all of those things add to the momentum for people to continue to invest and to create jobs and to base their businesses in the city centre, which is, a lucky position for us to be in. And it's not luck for luck's sake; it's luck by design. But I think we are blessed to be in that position because otherwise we'd be facing extremely difficult headwinds with no investment strategy and no momentum to take us through what could be difficult times, as I said. So thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to say that.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Chris Evans, online.
Hi, yeah, in 3.19, so highlighted that UK government funds are starting to take over from the EU funds. Do you have a ballpark figure on how much that's costing Swansea at the moment, the loss of EU money?
Shall I? I'll attempt to make a start, and I'll let the leader follow on. So the Shared Prosperity Fund is the main. There are two key funds. The Shared Prosperity Fund, which is primarily revenue funding stream, where Swansea has an allocation of 34 million up until March 2025. We're nearly at the end of the first year of delivery, and we're awaiting approval of the regional investment plan to unlock the funds for the current year. There's also the Levelling Up Fund, which is a competitive process. 2 rounds so far. We will see what happens on Thursday as regards any further announcements on the Levelling Up Fund, which extremely competitive. But if the Shared Prosperity Fund for the entire UK, for every local authority in the United Kingdom, is 2.6 billion over up to March 2025. We had 2.4 billion in Wales alone during the last 2014 to 20 EU programmes. For comparison purposes. So I'll leave you draw your own conclusions from that. We're doing what we can with the funds that are coming through, and Swansea is leading Shared Prosperity Fund for the Southwest region, and we're going as quick as we can.
Chris, do you want to come back on that?
Sorry, it's not me. No, all good. Cheers.
Okay. Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you. Peter's touched on one of my questions. The first point was about how did you catch the data of the city centre footfall, but you made the point, I think, Paul, that people are going back to work in the city centre. What we didn't have is how much they're spending in the city centre, and I don't know if there's a way that you can quantify that, because as Peter said, I've been into the city centre once or twice quite recently, and I must admit on a Sunday it was actually quite busy on the day I was actually in there, and that was at 11 o'clock, which is when most of the stores have just opened, so it was quite busy. But for weekdays it is still quite dead, so I don't know how we can capture the data of what people are actually going into the shops and actually spending. I know you'd have to go around, I suppose, the individual shops. The other one is a point actually, and it's on 2.17, and I actually welcome it. It says here about the 5th bullet point about wholesale conversion to flats or demolition of character buildings is often considered a cheaper option. So I'm really pleased to see that we're asking for alternatives to be thoroughly evaluated, because I know, sitting on planning committee, which I have done for 23 years, we've seen a lot of buildings knocked down, but in fact we've managed to keep some. And the one I'm thinking of particularly is the Institute in Town Hill, where we insisted that they kept the building with a clock on it because there was no good reason to knock it down. And I'm glad to say, and I think St Thomas School as well. Yeah. So we've had some, good results, but those were only 2 small things. So I do hope we still pushed developers to think of our character. We don't want a bland, everybody looks the same. So I'm really pleased to see that in there. Thank you.
Chair, just on the spend data, I believe Swansea Bid do have access to that, and there is information on the Centre for Cities pages that I've put in the chat for you, and we'll have a look at what else we can pull out on that. And on the other points, I mean, the Palace and the Albert Hall, there are other examples of the successful repurposing of buildings, and that is a passion of mine personally. So be reassured that when applications come in, they do get scrutinised for funding.
Leader, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, it's all okay, Chair. The point has been covered.
Okay. Councillor Wendy Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. We've touched on quite a bit about numbers coming into the city centre, and indeed it is positive that the figures are going up. I just wondered, do we separate out at all, or do we conduct any more refinements in terms of a survey as to why people are coming into the city centre? I'm just a little bit concerned that the figures are going to be boosted by the fact that there's so much in the way of student accommodation in the city centre. And I think my overriding concern is that I do not think, and this is a view gleaned from various other people that Swansea is a shopping destination anymore in the way it used to be. Now, I accept that the world has changed, but I don't know anyone that would go into the city centre for shopping exclusively. They would prefer to go to Cardiff. They would prefer to go to Park Trostor. And of course, this is the out of town influence. And I just wonder if you are doing any kind of research into what can be done to make Swansea the shopping destination it once was. And believe me, when I was young and, you know, had children, young children, to go into Swansea for a couple of hours on a Friday afternoon just to have a look around the shops, it was a bit of a do, a bit of an adventure. I don't know anyone who feels that way now, which I think is a little bit sad. Thank you, Chair.
Rita, you've got your hand up. I assume we want to answer that question, I would have thought.
Yeah, if you don't mind. No, I think, look, I get where Councillor Fitzgerald is coming from, in that, you know, the days that we remember where people used to go for a day out to do their shopping in any city centre have long passed. You know, you look at any successful city now, and what they offer is a destination, is a mix. So people don't go out just for shopping anymore. They go out for the whole day out. They go out for the entertainment. They go out to lunch. They go out for a different experience rather than just going to do their primary shopping. And there are very good reasons for that, which you touched upon, which are, you know, people can buy stuff on the internet more quickly and more easily now, and people choose to do that. And people do choose to shop out of town. Those are choices that we as a population make. You know, it's not a criticism. It's a statement of fact. The world has changed significantly since the days of the 1960s and 1970s, where the only options in those days were to go into city centres to do your shopping. You know, you don't buy white goods in city centres any longer. They're either out of town or online. But people do still want to visit city centres. That's clear. And I think that's why the strategy that we have, which is to create that mix of a good quality shopping element, a good quality dining and entertainment element, together with events and other activities in the city centre, backed up by more people living in the city centre to bring up the density, is a really successful strategy. And it's one that, you know, Cardiff use. People don't go to Cardiff now for a shopping day. People go to Cardiff for a day out because they're able to do multiple things there. That's the same of Birmingham, the same of London, the same of many successful cities. So it's not a challenge unique to Swansea. I think the strategy we've got is the right one. And, you know, that's why that £1 billion of delivery to deliver those major projects, those major changes, the repurposing, the saving of our historic buildings, which is really important, as Paul said, you know, repurposing those so they got use for many years to come. All of that is part of a strategy that will see Swansea successful for many years to come, because there ain't no way the population of the UK are going back to the 1960s or 70s in their shopping habits. Those days, unfortunately, have gone.
Councillor Linda James.
Right, thank you, Chair. First of all, can I just pick up on the comments that Councillor Fitzgerald made? There is nowhere in Swansea to go and buy good quality household goods, whether it's china, cutlery, pots and pans. You don't want to buy everything online. It's nice to be able to pick things up and feel and touch them before you purchase them. So I'm not expecting a comment back from that. The second question I had, Paul mentioned the Dragon Hotel. Could you remind me what is happening to the Dragon Hotel, please?
Yeah, so basically there's a planning application in for installation of a green living wall on the facade of the upper floors. That work is progressing. Windows are due to be installed, replacement windows around January time, and then as the planting season comes in, the green walls will be installed in time for the spring. So it'll be a comprehensive, it's actually quite a landmark scheme that will be taking place in the next few months.
Thank you. The other question I had, it was concerning the market. It's one place I do go and visit when I'm in Swansea city centre. I just wondered if the council had increase the cost to the market traders to hire their stalls, because I found the cost of the food that they're selling now is gone up so much beyond, the increase is beyond what the prices that things have increased in supermarkets. And I've found that some of the items were actually much cheaper to go and buy in Marks and Spencer's, which is not renowned as being the cheapest place to do your shopping. And that's one question. And the other one concerning the market, I wondered if we'd ever asked the public what they'd like there. If there'd been a public survey, because there are areas that are very overcrowded. You can't get through properly with a pushchair. So how anybody with a wheelchair or mobility scooter can get through, I don't know. And that is particularly around the Oxford Street entrance. It's just so crammed with stalls. And although we put a nice seating area in the market, some of the stalls have still got tables and chairs outside their stalls, which makes it very difficult to get through.
Leader, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just on that point, I mean, if the inference from Councillor James was, have we put the rents up, which have therefore meant the traders have increased their prices? Not to my knowledge. I mean, we obviously have a rent review every year. We deployed quite a significant package of help to the traders during COVID, and we've continued to support investment into the market, including new toilets and other facilities. There has been a debate with the market traders around the entrances and ensuring that they remain as uncluttered as possible. And my understanding is the market is almost fully let, and that the demand for stalls in the market is still high. So, it's a very successful market. We should be really proud of it. We want to continue to improve it and work with the traders in the market to do so. That's always been the aim. So I'm incredibly proud of the market. I find it's a hugely beneficial aspect of Swansea. The quality of produce there is really good, and we should be really proud that we've got that. So, no, I take a more positive view than Councillor James on the market.
You obviously haven't tried taking a pushchair through it.
I don't think, Rob, have you ever taken a pushchair through the market? Because if you have, I think we'll film it.
I haven't tried that, Chair, but I have to say, look, there are health and safety considerations for access to any commercial premises, and I'm sure the market complies with those.
I think, Rob, for the next election leaflet, you may show pushing you through a pushchair through the market. Okay.
No, I won't be doing that, but Chair, I think it's an important point, though, because what that does demonstrate, though, is the market is full on a regular basis.
Yeah, I gathered that was what you're going to say.
You could do it for children in need, of course. You could do it for children in need.
Okay, Councillor Will Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. I think the leader hit the nail on the head earlier when he said about a reason to enter the city centre other than just shopping, and I think that is, part of the new way that people will shop. Gone are the days where you make that, big shop, you go in for several different reasons. So, my question really is, obviously, the new archive building in the centre is part of that strategy to, other things to bring people into the city centre. And obviously the council own a lot of freeholds in the city centre. I'm just wondering, are there any other premises which are being sort of earmarked for less commercial activity, so more bringing people in rather than generating revenue, for example? Thank you.
Leader?
Yeah, there are a number of actions underway at the moment, which will be across a range of living accommodation, leisure purposes, private sector interventions. You'll have heard recently that Cathays have purchased a number of significant blocks within the city centre and are intent on repurposing them both for leisure, retail and living accommodation. You'll know that we are actively looking at further potential purchases in the city centre ourselves, and Urban Splash will be bringing forward details of phase 2 developments shortly, which will complement what we've done on phase 1 of Copper Bay, and there will likely be a mix there of different activities, and I'm sure Mr. Mowbray may say more in the forthcoming item.
Thank you. Okay, well,
Yeah, it would be nice to have a little bit more detail, but we'll see if it comes up later. Thanks, Chair.
okay. Councillor Mike White.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's very dreary, you know, being talked down. You know what I mean? If you've got negative comments we made, you know, we mentioned the market. The market has been won so many awards as the best market in Britain. You know, people come to Swansea because of the attraction of the market. As I say, there's been a lot of investment in the market. But I would like to ask the leader, is it possible, because of encouraging people to Swansea, are we looking to support coach companies who I know come to Swansea now, would bring people from other areas, but are we going to encourage these companies to perhaps actually visit the city more often, you know, with all of the new things that are coming to Swansea? Thank you, Chair.
I'm sorry, Mike. I don't know if I think people didn't quite pick up what you said.
Yeah, what to bring people to the city, more to bring more, as you know, just for now Christmas, if we can, to encourage to work with tourism to bring more visitors into the city centre from outside of Swansea.
Leader.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, Councillor, I can assure Councillor White that that is one of the things that we are encouraging. Councillor White will know that obviously during the recent school holidays in the summer and for the previous year, we encouraged free bus travel and for people to switch to using buses to come into the city centre. You'll know that the arena is outperforming expectations in terms of visitor numbers. And those visitors will be coming by coach as well as other means. We're in discussions with First around enhancing the train service so that people have the option of coming and leaving by train as well for shows in the arena. And obviously, we're trying to improve the overall dwell time in the city centre for the reasons we discussed earlier and that Councillor Will Thomas picked up on, which is to give people more opportunities to do more things in and around the city centre. And there are schemes in the pipeline which will add to that, and I'm interested and keen to share them with Councillor Thomas and others in due course. But some of them are at a commercially sensitive level, which is why we can't currently disclose all of the details. But certainly, you know, if we can get more people in by whatever means, bus, train, cruise ship, whichever one we can do. We will obviously try and take the opportunity to get people to come to Swansea and give them good reasons to come here.
Councillor Terry Hennigan.
Perhaps the leader could tell us, you know, the amount of people that are travelling in from outside Swansea to attend some of the big events that's going on in the arena.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hennigan. I don't have the up-to-date numbers with me, but I know that we were significantly above the first-year targets that we'd set. I think ATG are doing a fantastic job in terms of the programme that they've been able to pull together in the arena, and visitor numbers to the arena are performing really well. Mr. Mowbray may have some further details on that he can share, but certainly it's well above our first-year expectations. You'll know that we're also working closely with Skyline around the visitor numbers that potentially could come from the Skyline development if it's approved. You know, if you take those two things together, once both operations are up and running, you'd be looking at more than 1 million additional visitors coming to Swansea every year to support the local economy and to enjoy a great time in Swansea.
Chair?
Yes, sorry.
So would you agree with me that the hotels, bed and breakfasts, they are doing quite well in the city centre?
Yes, Councillor Hennigan, the feedback we're having is restaurants, the taxi firms and hotel bookings, etc., all are seeing an impact from the arena and from the other events in the city centre. We've got obviously the Christmas event coming this Sunday, and we expect to see large crowds in the city centre to enjoy a fantastic parade, which is just one of a number of events that have been on over recent months.
Yeah,
Councillor Hume.
Can I just add to what the leader said in terms of numbers? My understanding is that sort of the last figures I heard, at least for a couple of weeks out of date now, were something like 130,000 tickets have been sold for, which is ahead of programme in terms of where ATG thought they were going to be. They were anticipating maturity by about year 3 and about 200 events per annum by that time. But things are going extremely well. I know that ATG are extremely pleased with the with the way the arena is going, and what it's done for the city as well in terms of the PR side of things, in terms of how many people, when you travel around the UK, know what's going on in Swansea now as well. So Swansea's profile has significantly been improved and enhanced, which is really positive. Which means that the occupiers, investors, etc., are now looking at Swansea where they wouldn't have looked at before. And to be fair, that includes Urban Splash, who one of their sort of statements was, we probably wouldn't have worked with Swansea 5 years ago, but now what's going on in the arena and the regeneration agenda really stimulated them to bid for the opportunity, and they were successful. And I think they will be really good for Swansea moving forward, with more projects to be delivered, which is really positive.
Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yeah, thanks for that. I must admit, reading this report, if anybody wanted convincing that we shouldn't have come out of Europe, I think the detail is here. It does worry me that the amount of money actually coming from the national government is going to be greatly reduced. And considering we're actually going to move into a very difficult period, I worry about that as well. One thing that the local authority has had to dig deep actually to perhaps kickstart, the investment, with the arena and so on. And I hope the local authority doesn't have to keep digging deep, to take things forward. I heard what the leader said and Hugh Mowbray with, some of the private investors, and I sincerely hope they actually come up with it, because I've been concerned really with the low level of private investment actually up to date. I'm not talking about the student accommodation, because that really has just benefited one particular part of the private sector. But really, we're actually talking about retail shops here as well. Good quality retail shops won't actually come to Swansea unless people actually spend the money in Swansea. Hence, really, I know we actually want to attract good, well-paid jobs and so on. I've not really seen that or the detail of that up to date, and I welcome really any news on that in that area. I think the next 2 or 3 years are going to be extremely difficult, not only for Swansea but for other parts of the UK, and I hope we come through it in a beneficial way.
Rob Stewart, leader.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do something very unusual here, and I'll start off by agreeing with Councillor Jones. I think you're absolutely right there.
Are you all right?
No, but
suffering from heat burn or what, or something like that?
We can agree on this, which is, I think, everybody would be benefiting more if we had remained within the European Union. That is clear. We're going to be 4% poorer as a nation by the effects of the current Brexit deal, and certainly we're seeing lots of impacts emerging now that were warned about prior to the Brexit decision being made. So I do agree with him on that. I think it'll be a lot more positive for the economy and for areas like Swansea if we were still in the European Union. In terms of students, though, I do disagree with them. They don't only have a benefit to the people who they may be living in the accommodation. The students obviously spend in our city. They bring a real additional boost to our city and our economy. And of course, it's great that we have so many young people who are going to be the future business leaders, the future wealth creators of our economy, learning and becoming the next generation of leaders in Swansea. That is really important, and I think I always see students, our young people coming to Swansea as a benefit to us and a real boost to us. And it's part of that broader strategy that I keep trying to bring everybody back to. You're not going to be able to get the stores that you would want to see in a city centre or the investors to come unless you tackle the underlying issues, which are getting more people to live here, more people to work here, and more people to enjoy here. It's a very, very simple strategy. And if you look at the interventions that we are making across the city and county, it's all about that. So student accommodation, whilst some people view it as a negative, is a real positive in terms of that strategy, because you're basing thousands of people in the city centre then who are going to live in better, potentially more suitable accommodation, and they're going to spend in the city centre supporting businesses. In addition, we're also then delivering new office workspace, we're delivering new places for people to work, we're regenerating workspaces, and we're regenerating existing living accommodation above shops so that more people come in for private rent and others adding to that. And of course, as part of phase 2, we could well be delivering significant amounts of additional living accommodation for private rent or for private living in the city centre as well. And then finally, the arena was the start of it, but other things like the aquarium, Skyline, and other initiatives bring people to the city to enjoy the leisure aspects, the dwell time, the reasons for people to visit. All of those things together really, really do then give us that destination that we really are looking for, and it gives us that long-term sustainability. If you've been into the city centre in the last couple of days, I was there for the remembrance ceremony yesterday. Then take a walk down Oxford Street. You'll see the library hub with the new archive space being converted by the council. Right next to it, if you take a look, you'll see a fully refurbished facade for Marks and Spencer's. They spent quite a bit of money redoing their front, and then the 2 large blocks further down that street are now in private ownership and being refurbished and repurposed, ready for new lets and new tenants to come in. That is a really good position to be in, especially given where we are. And I guess the part that probably I disagree most with Councillor Jones on is that I truly believe it's our job as the public sector leaders in the city to lead on regeneration. It's not for us to do it all, and I've never believed that we should do it all, but we have to lead on some of this stuff. And I think Mr. Mowbray will confirm, we were told during the procurement exercise that if we weren't leading on the aspects of regenerating the city centre, then the private sector would not have added to that and would not be now picking up large-scale investments in the city centre and invest in. That's clear. So there is a role for us to do it, and we will continue to intervene, and we will continue to place investments in the city centre where we think it's the right thing to do to continue to boost the economy.
Jeff Jones?
Yes, perhaps unusual. I agree with Councillor Stewart as well over a few points. I know, it's getting worrying. Yes, one of my fears really was that the private sector would not actually coming forward, perhaps initially, to invest, and it's taken us to dig deep, shall I say, to actually start the ball rolling, or hopefully start the ball rolling anyway. With regards to the students, yes, I take your point really that students actually spend, perhaps on a negative, we're actually losing a lot of students from Calais. So, but I'm sure Calais will actually bear the burden there. With regards to people actually living in the city centre, great, But then again, the people have got our money in their pockets to actually spend in the shops, and they need to have well-paid jobs to actually attract, shall we say, perhaps higher class shops than some of the ones that are actually there. I'm not trying to knock some of the shops that are there. I'm sure a lot of people actually, enjoy shopping in them, but to meet a wider need of the population, I think people need money in their pockets at the end of the day to spend in the shops.
Sorry, Jack, can I add to that in terms of?
Yeah, by all means, yeah.
I think when we started on the journey, the regeneration journey we're on now, we went out to the market for private sector developers to work on the city centre, and there was absolutely no interest going back 7 or 8 years ago. And that is, at that time, the council, I think, took a brave decision to actually sort of take the lead and be the developer of some of these schemes, like the Arena and like 71, 72. And that is bearing the benefit. We're seeing the benefits of that now, because yes, there was money invested by the council, but if we hadn't done that, we'd be in the same place as many other cities in the UK who are really struggling at the moment, because they haven't got an arena to show people. They haven't got sort of the amount of regeneration which is going on, which sort of has raised the profile of Swansea across the UK, and it is bringing in private sector investment. There's no doubt about that. In terms of Urban Splash haven't started spending yet, but they've got significant plans to come forward with some really interesting schemes, which we can hopefully share with you in due course. As the leader says, you know, with Oxford Street, there's been a number of private sector companies who have now bought stuff there who are developing, and a number of those developers have said to me, we wouldn't have done that if you hadn't invested in the Kingsway and changed the actual sort of to make it look better, basically, in terms of making more sort of public facing. So the lots of these investments, they've got to be chosen very carefully. They've got to be sort of what are the key interventions which the council need to make these changes, because we can't do everything. But you know, the whole essence of going through the Shape in Swansea process and appointing somebody like Urban Splash is we are handing the baton over for major spend to them, which is the intention. There is still gap funding required. There is still sort of market failures in Swansea which see rents very low, so there needs to be sort of ways of mechanisms of dealing with that, but that is really important. And the other point about residential is getting the mix right in the city centre. It's got to be a complete mix of different types of tenure of residential to make sure there are people there who have got money to spend, and private rented is one of those sort of sectors which we need to build on in Wales, frankly, not only Swansea, because it's not a huge sector at the moment, but it's really important across the rest of the UK, and that is something which Urban Splash are very keen on. They've got their own private rented fund as well, which they can bring to bear in this. But it's working with our colleagues across the various housing associations and other sectors to make sure we've got the right tenures and as much residential as we can bring to bear, because you know, simply the regeneration strategy for Swansea is bringing more people, more footfall into the city centre to generate more business support, which is all about residential, offices, retail. It's all of those sectors to actually benefit the existing business in the city centre.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, can I just say, yes, you know, I hope it actually comes to pass that Urban Splash, but I understand they've actually gone through trying times over the last few years themselves. So.
I think we've been through a pandemic. They've come out very strongly from that. Their results, which they've issued recently, have been very positive. And one of the pleasing things for me, they mentioned their pipeline of development in those accounts, and Swansea was prominent in that pipeline of development. So that's really positive for us. Yes, there was a market failure in terms of a company called Seki Sui. It was not part of Urban Splash, although Urban Splash owners were investors in that company, which was linked. It was a Japanese company, one of the largest house builders in the world, but it just didn't work, unfortunately, because I think, you know, the company wanted volume and how do you say it, more bland type property, whereas Urban Splash are more individual. Yeah, Urban Splash are they are sort of individual in that respect, and it was a good company. Unfortunately, it just didn't work, and that's why it sort of got to where we are.
Paul, do you want to come back and say anything?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just quickly, I mean, just to add to what Hugh said, really, as I said earlier, the range of funding and loan options in paragraph 2.16, that kind of underlines there are a number of private developers that are now accessing those routes, and without those and regeneration programme, it's the context all that provides. It's creating an environment where it's easier for people to invest. And the other point going on what he was saying about the mix of tenures, where we put grant support into, and just to make sure this is clear, where we're supporting residential, we do not support student accommodation. We will only support a private developer where they are putting market rent flats in place. So that's really, really important in encouraging them not to just go for the easiest options, and as the leader and Hugh said, just to make sure that mix is there, so that the funding mechanisms we've got access to really do help to enable that. And it's really not, in the past we've only had maybe one or two developers approaching, that there are now several, including from outside, both Swansea developers and outside, that are using these tools, and they're in the pipeline, as you said.
Okay, anyone else? No? But can I thank you, Paul, for the report. The one criticism I have is that we asked for a city centre retail report, specifically about the retail element within the city centre. I understand that our city, like many other cities, is going to have to be a destination. We've been through that before. We went to Cardiff and seen how they altered the bay and many other things to make it a destination. But one of the things we did ask for was, specifically about retail. I'm very disappointed there isn't a great deal in about the market, which, the leader has already said how proud he is of the market. That our market is arguably the best, if not the best it's definitely the best in Wales, and probably one of the best in the UK. And having travelled to supposedly the best in Ireland and the best in Northern England, I have to say ours is considerably better than them. So I think there is an element that we need really now to think, if we can. I'm going to ask the list to come back in a few months' time to look specifically about retail. Many people ask what we can do about it. The problem is, this problem exists in many other cities. There's no doubt about that. And there's no doubt about the effect. And we heard today that Jewel's, high-end children's clothing shop, is possibly going into administration. So we well understand what's behind the retail. But we need to understand what we in Swansea can do. And one of the comments about how the Welsh Government can look at how business rates are done, but that's been talked about for a long time. Our parking strategy is something that we need to think about, and I know that at one stage we looked at cross-subsidy with public transport to make sure that we could get more people who use public transport to come into the city centre by using the cross-subsidy without parking. So the other thing I would like to ask is about the wage levels, because one of the things we have to remember is, whatever we do in the city centre, if we want to improve wage levels and we want to improve the quality of jobs, etc., that has to encompass everybody in the city. And I think that's one thing that we need to think about in the future, how we actually can measure those wage levels, because I think that's very important. You asked about phone alerts. Back in 2006, I can't remember if it was Motorola or one of these organizations, and I think it was Sir Terry Matthews, actually, his company, that developed it. It was once you put your phone on, when you came within a certain area of a city, it welcomed you. And we looked at that process, and I was hoping that by now we would have been able to adopt that. Not only does it help tourism, but it also helps the city centre development. And on 2.19 about the levelling up fund, Paul, I think we will wait until Thursday afternoon, because I think we're all in for a shock then. If that's all, Leader, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just going to make a couple of comments, if that's okay. One was that in terms of more focus on retail, it might be worth inviting BID along to that meeting, because I know they do collect data from retailers that they'll probably be able to share with you in terms of... Can
I interrupt you, Leader? The Chief Executive is here now.
Oh, great.
Russell, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, certainly. I've been listening to everything that's been going on here, and agree and sort of disagree with certain points which have been made. I think from our flow and data, it's about spend more than anything else, and we work with the likes of Vodafone, Google and Visa that collect that on O2. And one thing that we've been told by all different shapes and sizes of retailers and businesses, not just retailers, of course, is digital data and technology is what's needed. And we're working very closely with your officers, and I can't really say more about that from our point of view as a private sector organisation at the moment. But just to say we are working on the data, so we've got informed data in order we can supply that to who needs it and when they need it. Footflow in the city centre has been relatively strong. Just to recap on everything there, spend has been good as well. We haven't had any negativities coming from our businesses, of which we have over 814 presently. We could always do more. What is really helping at the present moment in time has been the car parking offer in all of the city and county Swansea car parks as well, and that's been a driving force in increasing spend in the area and maintaining businesses and jobs, and creating new jobs as well. Stability is key. So businesses, we're very resilient, but we do need that political stability on a national basis, talking to our other bids as well. Because once we got that, then businesses can do the rest and look and invest and creating jobs and improving the economy and vibrancy. The student market is very important to us as city centre businesses. It's a growing market, of which we had a 6% increase in our last student shopping event, which we done with the Quadrant Shopping Centre. And then spend was up on that as well. So we're looking to do that every year, and we have been doing it every year. What's been said about more people living here and working in the city centre is absolutely critical to us as businesses. We need more chimney pots. And that's what we need. We need more people working, but also living in the city centre in order we can help drive up footflow and spend. It links into what you guys, local authority, are doing in creating more well-earned and paid jobs. My office is on the Kingsway. There's so much development going on there. It's hugely exciting, and businesses are already investing on what they're going to be doing. It maybe they're looking to do more of a click and collect service, for instance. So they're anticipating more office workers to come in with a higher spend in it. On a positive note, and we are positive as businesses because we just crack on the best we can, is that we've had roughly 70 new businesses opening up in the last 12 months to 18 months in our bid area city centre. The majority of those have been independent traders, and those have grown from lockdown. Those people that might have lost a position and had a passion, decided to do something, and now they're opened up new businesses and they're employing people, and they're working very closely with universities to help retain those students as well. We've got some very good tech businesses in High Street, for instance. There's 2 businesses there that actually work with eBay and Google and supply the back office to it. Well-earned jobs. High Street, due to the developments going on, and I was in feeding that creative industrial action, that industrial focus really on technology in High Street, which is high-end jobs as well. I agree what the leader is saying, absolutely agree, is that so it's all about socialising then shopping in the city centres these days. And to put in perspective, I'm lucky enough that I chair numerous bodies around the UK of 350 bids, and that's roughly 125,000 businesses. And what they're saying is socialising and shopping. That's throughout all the cities, and Swansea is getting there with that. We do need more retail. I agree with that. And we need to improve the offering. But I was told this morning now Next has been let out. So there's a new retailer going in that. I can't share the details on that any further. But this is a direct result of the infrastructure investments which the local authority has been making. I can't emphasise that enough. The arena, these are unquoted figures, so maybe not for the public domain, if that's all right, Chair, is that, okay, fair enough. But the arena has had a massive impact in the area. Businesses are opening up, expanding and increasing jobs and prosperity as well. So that to us is a new anchor tenant as well. So backing up what other people are saying here as well. And we've, based on feedback, later trains are now going from Swansea as well, from the evening nighttime economy, which is a growing market for us as well. And we've got more brands coming into it. And that's a direct result of the pedestrianisation of Vine Street. You know, you've got different types of businesses opening up there now as well, which are more experience-led and quality-led, then, if we want to call it that. So, and us as a private sector business, we've invested millions in the city centre, and we'll continue to do so because the growth is there, the excitement's there, and I certainly do feel that Swansea, at the present moment in time, certainly has a swagger, and that's directly as a result of what's been going on. And long may it continue about the regeneration plans and the investments that the local authority and partners have made. Hope that helps. And by the way, you can buy pots and pans in Wilkinson's. Oh, right.
Just to remind everybody, once again, these meetings are recorded and other organisations can pick up what is said in here. So I would remind people, be careful what they actually say about other people and other items. Thank you very much, Russell, for your comments. The pedestrianisation of Wine Street has gone on since the late 1990s, and at the time when it was made, it was a comment was made. It was like the hordes of Genghis Khan, but not quite as well behaved, and it has improved somewhat. But you know, it's still a very busy nightclub nighttime entertainment. If there's no other comments or queries, no, then can I thank you very much, Paul, for your report. But as I say, we will probably be asking you in a couple of months' time or 6 months' time to come back specifically about what's happened with the retail. Okay, thank you.
Fine. Thank you, Chair.
Hugh, can I ask Mr. Hugh Mowbray to go through it?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the first item is Copper Bay. We have, as you know, the arena is open. The residential.
Do you want to put it up on screen?
No, well, unless you guys want it, I have got it in front of me. But
anybody want it up on screen?
No.
No. Okay then.
Yes. So the arena is open, as we know, trading very well. The park is also open and has been going very well. There are issues in terms of some issues of progress on site and defect monitoring, which is an ongoing issue. There has been a change of senior management in Buckingham, and that seems to be improving things as we speak. So that's all I was going to say on the arena at the moment, unless there's any other questions.
Yeah. How long has the arena been open now?
It's been open since March. So it's not even a whole year's trading yet.
Right. Okay. I can know. I know I can't remember. I know we've actually had an agreement, and perhaps we're not going to share it here, and so on. So it's only after a year that we would see any financial benefits to the local authority coming through. We're not talking about footfall or whatever. No, I'm talking about direct benefits. No.
There is obviously an agreed lease position. I can't share the figures, obviously, and there are profit share elements as well, which again won't be resolved properly until a full year's trading as well.
Yeah, if I could ask, I know it's another on the site or next to it and so on. It's not mentioned here. It's the hotel. I know somebody actually mentioned, hotels here and so on. What's the current position actually on that?
We have a developer who is very keen to progress, but there are ongoing discussions with Welsh Government about funding allocations for that, which I can't go any further on that one either. So that's where we are on that. But I would say it's looking pretty positive at the moment.
Okay, Councillor Will Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. It's related to the other side of the road from the arena. Obviously, same overall development. I understand there's some issues with the car park there or build. Can you shed some light on that, please?
There have been issues. There are issues with some of the paint rather than anything else, and that is coming to a conclusion. And we are in daily, if not more, discussion with Buckingham to try and get that resolved. As I just said, one of the senior manager there has left, and there is a new regime being brought in, and they are very keen to get all of this resolved. So I think we're looking at hopefully over the next couple of weeks we're going to make a lot more progress with them. But it is coming to a conclusion, and it will be finished in the next month or so.
Okay, great. Sorry,
it's fair. Excuse William. It's fair to say that if you want any more detail on that, it'll have to be done in private.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mike White.
Thank you, Chair. Have we been given any indication in regards to the actual finishing off of the outstanding snagging work? Have the contractors given us any sort of timescale on that? And we'll have that completed by
Well, it's going to be towards the end of the year. It's going to be all finished in reality. But obviously, we won't be doing the demolition of the car park.
Can I say again? I think this is an issue we should have in a private discussion, not in a public discussion, and where it can be recorded.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say on that. Unless there's anything else.
Anyone else? Will? Will? Did you want to come back? No. Okay. Then next.
Shaping Swansea, which is the overall sort of process. This won't stay on the agenda much longer, but it's just for information at the moment. The stage one, because under the agreement with Urban Splash, there are a number of stages they've got to complete to move through the process. Stage one for Swansea Central North, which is the phase 2 of the arena, and the Civic Centre site have now been submitted. So we are in a position to sign those off and move to the second stage, which is the detailed design with Urban Splash. So that is a very positive position to be at with them. And they are spending money in terms of looking at designs and looking at driving the schemes forward. Levelling up, as has already been mentioned, there is a funding bid in for that, which is I understand from Parliament has been delayed until the end of the year. So we'll see what happens with that. So that's it on Shaping Swansea.
Okay. Any questions? We know about Urban Splash as we have dealt with them before.
Okay. Swansea Central North, which is being led by Urban Splash and Milligan. This is repetitive in some respects in the stage 1 element has been signed off. And we're now looking to move towards stage 2 and the detailed delivery side of things. And the public sector hub, which is the office element, we are working with Milligan on that, and that is there are detailed designs being done at the moment to make sure that the floor plates work, etc., etc. And there are other potential partners who are going to come into that as well, which I can't mention at the moment, but that is looking really positive as well, which will be another key aspect for the city centre in terms of driving footfall.
What sort of numbers of office space are we looking at? Because I'm acutely aware of how much office space is going to be required when we consider that even in our own organisation, we are encouraging people to work from home. So if we are then saying that we're building this office space, how much office space is likely to be built, and what's the potential for occupation? I know it's not our problem because it's going to be a private funded organisation, but that again worries me about how that is going to be perceived if we got empty buildings. I'm not saying we will, but all I'm saying is that we're encouraging people that can work from home to work from home, and other firms possibly do the same.
From the first office block, which we'd be part of that, would be about 60 to 70,000 square foot. On top of that, though, there are another 4 or 5 different office blocks, which adds up to about 500,000 square feet in total. And there is we're in discussions with a party for the second block at the moment, which I can't obviously say, but that is another 60 to 70,000 square feet. And then I think that everybody involved in the project is absolutely sort of clear that if and when we get those 2 underway, that there will be demand for the other 3 office blocks from the private sector to come along. And there are a number of private sector requirements for Swansea at the moment, and they can't be fulfilled because there is no grade A accommodation in the city centre, unfortunately. You've got Alexander House, which can be refurbished, but apart from that, we haven't got anything. So 71, 72 will be the first grade A office block in Swansea for quite some years. And initial sort of discussions on that are very positive. And again, it's in terms of offices, you've got to build a critical mass, and that it's having that 500,000 potentially square foot, which it's not let at the moment, but we think that there will, once we get the first 1 or 2 of those underway, then it will sort of it'll gain momentum. It'll become an office destination, because again, Swansea hasn't got an office market at the moment, because as we know, the Enterprise Park has had all the office development for the last 30 or 40 years in reality.
I understand that, and many of
that's-
the banks moved out there, but they've even closed down out there now.
Yeah,
so,
but there is demand, and there is certainly a number of interests out there looking at Swansea as well. But we've got to get these offices into place. Okay.
Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just one point I was going to add to what Mr. Mowbray said. I think we've got to be clear that whilst we know that the world changed in how it worked during COVID, we haven't moved to people pulling out of working in city centres or not working or not requiring office space. As I said, we were already at the point where there was unmet demand. I think the world that we are seeing now is that people still require office space. They will use it slightly differently in terms of working in and out of those spaces and sharing more space, but certainly the demand is still there. So I think it's an important point for people to remember. We haven't post-COVID moved to a point where we don't need office accommodation anymore. That's simply not the case.
Okay.
Any further comments? No? Okay.
Moving on to 7172 the Kingsway. That's now progressing well on site. All the pilings completed, the pile caps, the basic floor on and the concrete pour for the 2 cores has commenced as well. So you won't see anything yet because obviously it starts from -2, but after Christmas it'll start to come out to the ground substantially. So that's a really positive aspect. Lettings, as I've said, we are out there in the market. We're talking to various people, and there's a number of good leads on that at the moment in terms of lettings, and we're also looking at the building management strategy, how it's going to be managed, and how everybody's going to be sort of brought together to create sort of a real sort of positive environment in the whole building. So that's a piece of work which is ongoing. The rear yard, which also links in with HASA. So that's an ongoing discussion with them as well, how that rear yard works. We've got the cut through from Kingsway through to Oxford Street. So that's in place, ready for when these buildings are complete. So having that yard at the rear and creating a nice environment in that area obviously helps the buildings which actually back onto that, including Russell's office. So
that's why we did it, isn't it? Councillor Peter Black. Oh, sorry.
No, Barclays. We put Barclays on hold because the tender prices came back were far higher than we thought. So I think we're just delaying that until we can either go back to the market or we can reappraise what the way forward is on those 3 buildings.
That was my question. I wasn't quite clear what exactly we're doing with the Barclays building, or the intention.
We were going out to the market to refurbish it.
Right.
Unfortunately, the prices that come back have been way above the budgets which we've got, unfortunately. So that is on hold at the moment.
So that belongs to us now, does it?
We own Barclays plus the next 2 buildings along.
Right.
So there's a bit of a critical mass there, which hopefully we can look maybe potentially the private sector to get involved.
So the issue is the cost of the refurbishment,
Yeah.
in terms of that. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've had a recent ill health retirement, and we've got a number of staff which are off at the moment. So we have got a staff issue on some of these things, to be honest, which we're trying to resolve at the moment. So that's an ongoing issue. If there's no other questions on that, I can move.
Any questions? I can't see any hands up. Anyone?
I can move on to TAN 15. Yes, there are issues as drafted, as this says. We've been doing a lot of work on that with private advisors, JBA, and they've given us their clear report on this. And we've now written to the head of planning in the Assembly in terms of what we want in terms of changes and what needs to change to make this work. So there's an ongoing dialogue on that. One of the sort of key issues of inundation was the underpass next to County Hall, Civic Centre. The work that's now got a planning permission, so the works are being looked at that to block that up, which solves one of the issues for Swansea. So that's where we are at the moment.
Councillor Peter Black.
You met the head of planning Welsh Government, of course. Not
yes. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
Just to, I mean, I'm not clear what exactly is going on here, but it seems to me that if we're looking to change the wording of TAN 15, does that actually mitigate the flood risk of some of the developments we want to put in place? Because some of these developments are going to add to that flood risk, aren't they?
There's anything which we would build, we'd have to look at flood mitigation
Yeah.
as part of the design. So that would be a fundamental aspect of anything that goes forward. And you've got to remember that sort of, you know, other areas like in other cities across Wales have got defended areas. But they've got defended areas because they've been inundated already. Swansea hasn't had that level of flooding to date, which so that is a positive for us. And again, you know, personally, I prefer to be in that sort of area where we are rather than somewhere which has got significant flood defences because they know there's an issue already. But basically, we just need some changes to allow developments in the Zone 3 areas with proper mitigation and design of buildings to allow these things to move forward. So I think there's a clear way forward, and there's just a movement in the wording of the TAN, which we are expecting Welsh Government to go out to consultation on.
I'm just concerned that if you start building up, particularly on the river banks, that you start to narrow the river passage, which increases the risk of flooding. And that you know, the issue there is that, yes, we want TAN 15 to allow development, but that development itself could also contribute to flooding, which is why TAN 15 is being amended in the first place. And, you know, changing the wording doesn't alter that.
No, I'd agree with that, and I think, you know, one of the things we're not looking at any significant developments along the river frontage. You know, the river frontage is the area of inundation. That's where it would come from. So it's more flood protection rather than development in those areas.
St Thomas Station site.
St Thomas Station site isn't affected, ironically, by TAN 15. It is above the levels because it's a 2-level site. Right. So the lower level where the footpath would be designed to flood, and there are a number of these schemes across the UK, Bristol and various other things, which I've actually seen, which and they've actually sort of got walkways, but if they do flood, they flood, and then they just get sort of cleaned and used again. And it's
what about the area around SA1? Isn't that within the flood areas as well?
Elements of SA1 are in the flood areas, but it's Sainsbury's and that wall along the river is the main issue for Swansea.
Right. Okay. And Mumbles, of course, the river wall, the sea wall there.
Yes, which is that. Yeah. There's work being done on that.
To be honest, a lot of that isn't TAN 15. That is just mitigation because of tidal. So the biggest worry is further up the river past the stadium, and where we actually give away sacrificial land. I've been on a bend by Anastawi, and how much more of that we have to do. We put in. We put in ponds so that we would have mitigation areas with them. We've got the half rounds, we got the Fenrod Lake. So we've got quite a lot of that. And I think part of the wording about this is how do you build on these zones? You know, where do you put the electric sockets? How you adapt the buildings to suit where the possibility of the 1 in 1,000-year flood is. So I understand what you're saying, but I think that is so important because it's the future of the whole of that area.
Okay.
Leader?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just going to add to what is said. I mean, I think when TAN 15 in its current form was conceived, it was done in 3 sort of separate bits. So you had the flood map creation with NRW, you had the drafting of the new wording, and then you had the evaluation of how that would play out by the technical officers across Wales. It was only when the 3 elements were brought together that people started to realise actually it was going to lead to decisions that were probably ones that were never anticipated when it was drafted in the way it is. So again, that is the issue that we have with current TAN 15, which is why Welsh Government took a step back and gave for a period of further reflection and refinement. We've been working hard across all 22 authorities to make sure we get to a position on TAN 15 where the wording, especially with regards to Zone 3, is something that provides for sustainable development, because I think that's what we all want to get to here, but doesn't prevent large parts of Wales being almost undevelopable, which was always a risk if the elements that were brought together in the way that they were applied. So I think we're making some good progress on that. It strikes the right balance between making sure that we prepare for the flood risk that we'll see over the next 100 years, that we protect our communities, that we invest in flood defences, but that we don't call a halt to any development at all for the next 100 years.
Okay. The next one is Wine Street, which is now substantially complete. There are some small snagging issues, and we are in discussion with the contractor over budget. As you will know, there are a number of issues with contractors at the moment and prices, which is very difficult, but that's nearing resolution. So I think that's all we need to say on that one, really.
Could I come in, Chairman, please?
Councillor Paxton Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of Wine Street, as you say, as I understand it here, it's more or less complete now. I must admit I've not been down there for a while, but what I was going to ask is that obviously one of the things we talked about was the provision of public information because of the historical nature of that area. I'm just wondering what we've done in that respect, or is that work complete, or is there more to be done on that?
No, I think, to be fair, there is more work to be done on that. The lead officer on this has unfortunately had to retire through ill health, and we are struggling for resources a bit at the moment, but that is something which we will be looking to deliver.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, move on.
Okay, Castle Square. This is now in planning. It's almost there. I think there's one item outstanding before that can be released, which I'm told will probably be this week or next week. It'll be released in terms of granted a planning consent, which is really positive. It's a really quality it's Instagrammable, shall we say, scheme as well. So I think it's going to be really good for Swansea and the city centre. It's the quality audit aspect which we're waiting for the highways aspect to be finished on that. The stage 3 report has been completed by the architects and the team as well. So we've done a lot of work on the tender process, as you can imagine, and getting the right process for that is clear. So we've got a process which we've agreed between everybody on that as well. So that will be going out to tender very shortly in that respect. And so, you know, we're looking to, as soon as we got the planning in place, the tender in place, we can then look to start on site.
Okay, can I ask on that, when we have got the tender process at its final closure, who will be paying for it?
This is a council-led scheme.
It is council.
It is council-led, but there is quite a substantial amount of Welsh Government money coming into this as well.
How is it being funded by the UK, the Welsh Government?
It's Paul may want to, if you know, he's good if he's around, but I think it's regeneration money.
It is regen.
Yeah.
Okay.
The chair is the Transforming Towns programme from Welsh Government is gap funding it.
What's it called?
Transforming Towns.
Isn't that that's part funding, isn't it? And we got to match fund it.
Yeah.
Well, yes, yeah, but it's, you know, it is a substantial amount of money, but it's not all the money. So the rest of it is council funded.
And is it then going to be privately operated? Are we going to have whoever goes in there? Are they going to then maintain it? As we've suggested in the future, in the past.
Whoever goes in there will have allocated areas to maintain, and what we have agreed in a similar way to the arena is that incomes will be ring fenced to make sure we maintain the rest of the areas properly. Which
okay. Thank you, Councillor Will Thomas.
Sorry, Chair, that was my question regarding the maintenance, because obviously such a key site, but it's been answered. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay.
Community hub. This is obviously the BHS building, and the tenders have been out for that, and stage 4 designs are now being completed. So once all of that is in place and agreed, then it will start on site. So it's not very far away now. But
Councillor Peter Black.
Yeah, do we know when we'll have a final costing for this building?
I'm not leading on this. This is one which is with Jeff's team, but my understanding is they're very close to it now, so it should be in the next week or so.
Good. I look forward to him coming back to the Scrutiny Programme Committee.
Okay. City centre decant. I don't know if that's the right word for that.
Well, this is basically no, probably not. But I think this is us moving into the St David's office hubs. We're doing a lot of work with Milligans at the moment, who are leading on this aspect with Urban Splash, and it is targeted for completion in spring 2025. So and that means that sort of the decant, or whatever one you want to call it, from of the library services and archives is the first stage of that, which goes into the public sector. It's a hub, which is BHS. And then the remaining staff on site would then move into the office block in the Kingsway in 2025, when that's complete.
We are moving staff into the new office block we're building in the Kingsway.
No, this is moving office staff into the new office block, which will be built by Urban Splash in St David's. This is the one next to the ramp, the first building of Swansea Central North, which is the second phase.
This is where St David's car park is currently.
Yes, it's where it's going to be built, basically where the Llys Sant has just been demolished.
Right, so where by Old Warehouse was and all that.
Yes.
Has that even got planning permission yet?
Yeah, well, it has an outline planning position already, and that would need to be released once we've got the detailed designs in place.
So we're looking to have that finished by the end of 2024, as well as the
2025.
Beginning of 25.
Spring 2025 says there, but it's going to be 2025.
And the hub by mid 2024.
Yes, the hub is obviously a conversion of the existing.
I understand that, but that's mid 2024.
Yeah,
and then this by the beginning of 2025.
Not beginning, it'll be.
Well, spring is in the first quarter of 2025.
If I'm being honest, I think it'll probably be a little bit later than that.
Okay, so
it will be 2025.
end of spring.
Summer 2025. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah, Skyline. This is progressing really well. The land assembly is almost complete in terms of moving that forward. There were a number of title issues on the hill which are now being resolved with the land registry. Skyline have now appointed all of their professional teams, so they're actually sort of bringing everything together at the moment, really. And we are working on the heads of terms for the agreement for lease and the funding agreement, which will be again imminently issued to Skyline. So it's a very positive story at the moment, and they've got board approval to proceed, subject to all of this work being completed.
So, Councillor Peter Black.
Yeah, in terms of the land assembly, what percentage have we actually managed to achieve in terms of required?
Of acquiring it all? Yeah. We've agreed all of it. 100% has been agreed.
So we've got 100% agreed.
We got 100% agreed, but it's in legals at the moment.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So maybe less than 50% of the land registry at this stage, isn't like that, or?
Well, there's two issues with the land registry. First of all is sort of the unregistered land, which we've actually managed to find title to lots of it, which just haven't been registered over the years in the deep depths of the archives, etc. So that's all been.
That was ours already, then, was it?
It was ours, but it hadn't been registered because
I understand
the
that.
75 sort of deadline for that. And then the second one, obviously, is when we buy this land, that will get registered, but that's in legals at the moment, so it can't be registered quite yet, but it will be.
So the unregistered land, which we own, is with the land registry, and the rest we're working through the process. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Is there anyone else? I've seen Councillor Will Thomas's hand up.
Yeah, sorry, Trey, I did take you down. It was a similar question. I was just wondering, on the land that we did have to purchase, then, is there any, what was the outlay to the council on that, or is that for a closed session? Or
Can I suggest that we have that in closed session for another scrutiny, because there are issues around this deal that we will need to have in closed session, especially about some other aspects of the funding of it.
Okay, fine. Yeah, Paul, I'm not sure if you want to cover the next four as you're here.
Oh, okay, thanks you.
Is that enough? Is that enough? That's all you know.
Yeah.
Or do you want me to do it? I'm
I-
happy to do it.
Easy either way. Hugh.
Okay, well, just very quickly on the pontoons, the listed building consent has been confirmed, so that's another step forward. Tender evaluation processes are being undergone, and lease discussions with the Badminton estate are progressing, which is frankly never easy with that process because they haven't got enough of their team really. To be fair to them,
So they.
Duke of Beaufort. Yeah, who owns the majority of the riverbed, down to the elements which the council purchased from British Rail to build the barrage, which is down river from the Duke of Beaufort. So I think, again, that's going really well. It's a really important scheme, this, in terms of linking lots of things which we're doing together, which is Paul's team are leading on, which is a really good scheme, which we need for for Harvard and other aspects, because at the moment things like the Copperjack you can't get off it, which
I've got a declared interest in a member of the Copperjack team. So.
It's important that they can stop and taxis, etc. So there's a lot of benefits of this going to come forward in due course.
The booze cruise for a start off.
ERDF, there are issues with European funding and completion, and obviously the big issue for us was Barclays and reallocating that money. So that is something which Paul's doing work on at the moment. So I wouldn't.
Councillor Wendy Fitzgerald.
Yes, Chair, just a quick question relating to the Badminton estate and Duke of Beaufort. Do we have any costings for that are able to be disclosed? Because I suspect it's not going to come cheap if we are in lease discussions.
Yeah, we are in lease discussions. I'm not sure we can't discuss that in open session, but we can obviously have a closed session if that was required. And that's obviously for the there's an issue there with the pontoons and with Skyline.
What I'll do is what I'll do is if the figures are currently available, I will ask for recording to stop at the end of this meeting, and we'll go into private session for that discussion to take place. If the figures are available, are they here? Paul?
Not to hand, no.
Right, so what I'll have to do is make arrangements for us to have a private session to discuss the actual figures for both Skyline and the pontoon, and if there's any other projects which have got confidential commercial confidentiality in them, to be discussed in a private meeting. Is that okay by all members?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, and the car park chair as well.
And the what?
The other car park by the arena, Chair.
Okay, so we'll make a note of that, and I'll let you know when we can have that meeting. Okay, Hugh.
Okay. Well, we move on to the powerhouse. The shell and core works are looking to complete in November, and I'm sure anybody will agree who's been past there. It's looking fantastic, actually. It's looking really good, and the team have done a really good job on that. And that's ready to hand over to Penderyn, and they will then undertake their fit outs before opening.
Councillor Peter Black.
Yeah, I was going to suggest you can hold your camera session after the next meeting rather than have a special meeting for that. Just a general issue around this whole development around the copper works. I understand we're going to be relocating the park and ride. Have we looked at any sites for that? I've had some concerns about from my constituents about that being relocated, because obviously it's quite handy for my area in terms of that, and of course it's also used for the football as part. So I mean, how close are we going to be able to get to the stadium when we relocate that? That's
a piece of work which colleagues in highways are currently undertaking. They've got a feasibility study looking at different sites. So I think we would need to bring them in to have that discussion, because I'm not party to that, to be honest.
We have that next meeting as well, because I think that's going to be quite an important development. Is there a timescale for that?
Well, there is a timescale linked into the Skyline start on site. Yeah.
Yeah.
And completion.
what we'll try and do is get some
Yeah.
details about the timeline and when we can have that discussion.
And possible sites, because I think it's important that we get this right, because that is a very well used park and ride site, I understand it, and of course it's a very useful parking area for the football as well.
It actually isn't used particularly well, if I'm being honest with my
Really?
discussions with colleagues.
Okay.
And they are looking at a number of sites, and obviously this fits in with not only what sort of the Skyline Penderyn side of things. This is the wider Havard area is one of the 7 sites for Urban Splash as well. So they're party to this area as well. Yeah.
Okay, and finally,
Palace Theatre. We're looking at completion now in July, August. But again, this is, Paul's team are doing a great job on this, and it's saving a really important Swansea landmark.
yeah, and I think Mr. Fox would be highly delighted at that we're saving this building, and well, the Welsh government is saving it. There's more than us. Okay. Any questions or comments? No. Okay. Okay, if that's the case, thank you very much, Hugh. Next item on the agenda are the letters. Any comments or queries on any of the letters? If not, thank you all very much, and I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you.